through a few of the steps that's required in order for this to work. One of them is a pre-slope. If you see, this is raised above the floor by about 3/4 of an inch, which is about where the mortar bed is going to go for the pre-slope. So yes, if you use this drain, you definitely have to do a pre-slope, which most of you guys do anyway. I don't normally do it, but I'm going to do it for this purpose. So you see you have about a 3.5 inch span from left to right. So your hole is going to have to be 3.5 inches in order for this to fit. Okay, this simply fits down. This is the main body of the drain, and it just slides right on top of your pipe. It still has the 4 holes that everybody's used to in order for it to anchor down. Where are my screws at? I don't know where they're. So again, this is about 3/4 of an inch, and these are 1.25 inch screws, so those will work fine. I'm going to use this on my wall board as well. That will anchor everything down once it's glued in. So everything that you see here, and if you watch the video, you're going to see a more comprehensive video on how all this stuff comes together. But these are, for all intents and purposes, your weep holes. And you're going to see on that video how that exactly works, because your mortar bed is going to go up to the edge of that drain. This is a drain cap protector. That's all this is. Eventually this will get thrown away. So that comes off from there. Eventually that will get thrown away, and eventually your drain cap will go in there. There's your little direction sheet. I'm kind of jumping the gun here. It comes with this very cool, very heavy, which obviously is stainless steel embedded into it, or however they do that. There's no screws holding this cap down, so you can take the cap off if you need to access the drain at any time. But you can see the little grooves on the side here, right there, and then the opposite little ears that kind of slide in there. So it just kind of locks in by virtue of twisting it. It's very, very nice looking, very, very solid drain cap. And that drain cap, and this is going to be the edge of the shower eventually, or once the mortar bed is already poured and all that stuff. And that's how the weep holes that are now vertical instead of horizontal get excess water from the pan into the drain itself. But there's basically, you see all the components here. I know it's a little confusing when you first look at them, but there's really only your base, this part here, which goes down inside of there, and that will get manipulated to the height that I want it. Actually, that's wrong, my bad. I believe there's some silicone that's going to go on top of here, but when you watch the video, you're going to see more comprehensive how that works. I believe there's some caulking that goes on top of there to hold that down. Now, this is the part that I really, really like. This actually just slides right in there, and it tilts all around. It's just so, so cool. When I saw that, I fell in love with it. Specifically because when I pour my mortar bed, the drain itself is anchored down below floor level. And it's anchored down and it's finite. There's no way that's going to move. So in a normal drain, you're kind of stuck. Once the drain is glued in and it's cockeyed to one side or the other, or backward or forward, you're stuck. There's nothing you can do about it except manipulate your tile around the top of it to make sure you don't have pooling going on. With this, because it rotates around, it doesn't matter how your drain is fixated down there. It doesn't matter how off it is, because this manipulates around to your level. And even if your pan is off level and you have to set your drain off level to compensate, you can do that. You can't do this with any other drain. You know, so for that reason alone, I just absolutely love this drain. It's a lot more work. It's not necessarily harder to put in. The steps are relatively easy. And there's a lot of other advantages to it because it's sanitary, and you know, you can go into all the specifics of it. You can go to wondercat.com to find out all about it. I think it retails for about $50. You know, honestly, I don't know that there's always a better mousetrap. I think in this case there is, because I believe once I get used to the setup process, and it'll be much easier than it is now, obviously. I'm going to take this cap out for the time being, because I'm going to be doing my pre-slope. Not that I'm going to get anything in there, but that just keeps all your stuff out. You don't have to tape off the top of it. You don't have to have this on until the very, very last day, which is wonderful about this also. And all that stuff poured, you just stick that in there, and that's going to be watertight, believe it or not, and you can test and make sure that your pan liner and all that stuff is set right and there's no leaks or anything. but that comes much later on anyway. And then it just pops right out. It's got this little grip thing that pops right out. So that's pretty cool. I like it. It's a cool little setup that that I might get used to. So the first process to do a pre-slope, tar paper. You cut the tar paper to size, try and fill up the whole area. Get yourself a little stapler. I have a DeWalt stapler. That's all you do. Then the wire mesh goes, to which I already have pre-cut a couple of, ouch, be careful working with the wire mesh because it is sharp when you cut it, and on the edges, like I just cut my hand. Already pre-cut it to size with a little hole cut out. Just like so. A little overlap on top of that, just by an inch or so, a couple inches. Look at my hand. See, that's one little tiny cut. You gotta be careful. And then I'll cut another excess piece there, and I'll staple all that down, and then I'll be ready to put my pre-slope. Filling piece is done. Nice overlap. Ooh, I ran out of staples. So, the next process after all your wire is stapled down, this is a pre-slope. This is mortar material. Nothing more than you would have for your normal dry pack, it's called. Stays together in your hand, doesn't fall apart. Not a lot of water is needed. How you screed it out, how you get it down to your area that you want it is up to you. Everybody has their own method, but you're going to use a trowel inevitably, if I can find it. Oh, by the way, you're going to need a mixing tub, Home Depot. You're going to need a bunch of water. You're going to need a bunch of levels. Each one has a purpose. You're going to need a trowel, as I told you before, and a thought, which is what this is, and a shovel. And you just shovel the stuff in when you're done. And then incrementally, I'm going to screed it down. I could do that with a trowel. I could do it with a level, which I probably will. I could do it with a 2x4 that's 32 inches long, which is how long this is. It wouldn't be 32, it'd be about 28, 29. You want to be able to have some movement going back and forth. And then when you get it down to where it's level here, and you stop, that's your pre-slope. Pack it down really nice and firm. Wait till the next day. It'll be nice and dry. Put your pan liner over it, and you're ready to move on. This is the final phase of doing a pre-slope. Once all your mortar has been packed in nice and firm and everything, all the way up to the drain edge, the flange, right there. That's where you want it at. So that's perfect. Is that when you do one, that thing should be level, flat, flat, and level. Level meaning this way, not that way. This way, you want that pitch, which is the whole reason you do pre-pitch. So you want that little 1/4 inch per foot, which I have right there. So now I'm level. You see, I got about 1/2 inch going down, and that's all the way around. And so your bubble should be off going in that direction, but it should also be flat as possible. It doesn't have to be as perfect as this is, but it should be flat. And when you go across the same way, it should be level, and it should be flat, level, and flat. And there's no difference between doing this and doing the pan. You want the same idea going on. When I do this pan tomorrow, I want the same thing. I want it flat and I want it level. This is the next day. pre-slope is finished. Nice and neat all the way around, very solid. And that's all there is to it. The way this eventually works, there's going to be some caulking, there's going to be some glue, some PVC glue that goes on the inside of here, on the outside of here, and then a bead of caulking gets run around the edge here. Then it gets pushed in there when it's glued down, and the caulking will go around that ridge there. So that's kind of it. That you know, again, the Wonder Cap is an Australian product, and in Australia they have a lot of these type of drains. In fact, most of the drains that I see coming out of Australia don't even have the horizontal weep holes like we have. They're all vertical like that, which is a little different, and I'm not sure that one works better over the other, but again, just a very, very cool idea that I'm really feeling, especially after having put one in already. You know, it's always difficult to kind of make that change when you're used to doing something over and over for 20 years, and then you do something different. There are no bolts. Normally what I would do is cut an X right here in the middle, and then little X's for the bolts, and there are no bolts on here. So what it's having me do, which I don't like doing, is it's having me cut a circular cut right where the drain is. And so if you can, I don't know if you can see the indentation, but this is the flange. This is the parameter of the flange. That's not where you cut. You cut a circle right around the drain. And for anybody that knows how I do things, I never, ever, ever cut a circle for a drain. Follow my finger and the blade around it to make sure I get a good, decent cut. So the next process, kind of sort of in the same way that we set a normal liner, except that we put the caulking first. And in this case, the caulking goes last. So right on that larger part of the flange, you're going to put a bead of caulking. And in my mind, there's enough room on here to put quite a bit. I don't see there is a disadvantage to using too much. So now that that's on, and I can feel it all around. Now that that's on, you put a second layer on the top. And then you take the second part of your drain, will get primer and glue. Actually, if you watch the video, it doesn't call for primer, but I always do it anyway. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, because I want a really good bond anytime I do any type of PVC type of gluing. I always use primer. Once your primer has dried, if you choose to use the primer, then spread some glue on the inside. You have a very, very wide range for this this thing to go into. This is a lot of overkill because I'm going to bottom out on this piece. In twisting motion, make sure all the glue gets in there very well. And now I'm pushed down on the caulking, which you can clearly see. And I push this down in the same twisting motion. Now, the reason I can bottom out on that bottom flange, because this is where my adjustment happens. Although where I'm at right now is about 1 inch of material, so I doubt I'll go up higher than that, but you can adjust this. And as I said before, you know, to get it level. It's just, I've mentioned a couple times already, and I can't emphasize it enough. This is just a wonderful. Alright, so I sprayed out the excess caulking all around the edge there. That is now watertight by virtue of what you just saw, and I am ready. You could actually set this up if you're going to go higher with your bed, then you could set that up as you're screeding out your mortar. You can adjust this obviously because it's pretty loose fitting. That's another way for water to egress because it is loose fitting down there, as well as those vertical holes that I was telling you about. So I'm going to let it bottom out. Shower pan is now poured, and it's basically the same as you just saw from what I did yesterday on the pre-slope. It's literally the same. All I did is screed out, there's a couple of bags of 60-pound mortar in here, and I made sure that my back end is flat and it's level, and up there is flat and level, and in the middle is flat and level all the way across, and that I have a proper pitch. So my bubble is slightly off to the left, bubble is slightly off to the left, and bubble is slightly off to the left, and it's flat. And that's all you're trying to do. Same as yesterday. Pretty good slope going on there, which is where the shower head is, which is what I want. I put a torpedo level on top of the drain to make sure that both directions is level. And I have enough room here, enough girth for both of my thin set and my tile. It should be flush with the top of this cap because eventually this is basically a mud cap. So eventually that will come off and the drain will go in. I'm not going to be tiling this job. So what you're going to see tomorrow after all this is dry, well actually a couple days from now, I'm going to put the rest of the wallboard up. And then I'm going to waterproof everything. And what you will see at the end of the day is the same thing I do on a normal drain. I feel better about running a little bead of caulking around there. And that's what you're going to end up seeing is a waterproof shower without any tile. But I will put the drain cap on that you can actually see, and I'll put a little sample tile up against the edge so you can see how it looks at the end. This is the final process, setting the Wonder Cap. If you're curious about my shower pan and my curb and all that stuff, it's because I don't have, or I didn't have enough of the Red Guard, and I had some extra Aqua Defense. So there's actually a coat of Red Guard, I think 2 coats up under there, and then Aqua Defense on top. Which I kind of like the contrast. It lets you know that you definitely got all the spots that you needed to get. Anyway, back to the Wonder Cap. It is finished, finito, done. What I normally do on every drain, and I don't even know that it's necessary on this particular one, but I always put a bead of silicone, white silicone around the edge. I push it into the edge and then I just kind of wipe off the excess with my finger, so that way I have a nice tight seal, and then the waterproofer goes over that seal, so that it's a double seal going on. That way no water is ever going to get into my pan. You simply take off the mud cap, as it were, because that's all it is. You throw that away. So it says on here that that these are a couple of knockouts here on the left and right, and it said you can pierce here to remove the cap. Do not remove this until tiling is complete. So yeah, I'm not going to throw away the cap. I'm going to leave it here for the person who's going to be tiling, and then you put on your drain. Oh, by the way, you see these vertical weep holes? Isn't that so cool? All the way around. And one would say that you're clogging the weep holes, but the instructions specifically tell you not to put any pebbles around this area when you're putting this cap in, as opposed to most drains that tell you to put pebbles or something like that. So if this was not waterproofed, if the surface was not waterproofed, and at a point where water gets in to this drain, this is the bottom part of the shower pan right here, and then there's your weep holes, and water, because of the pre-slope is in here, water would naturally gravitate toward these weep holes, which is sand topping mix, which water will penetrate through and go down into the drain. And that's what the inside of the drain looks like. So yeah, that's it. Pretty simple process. Pretty ideal type of drain to go on top of there, because it is so, this thing is so solid and so sturdy. Drain cap. So eventually, when you tile up around that edge, you're going to be flush with the top of that drain cap. Yeah, so that would be kind of the final product, more or less. I don't know if the tile is going to go in that way. In fact, I think the tile that's going in, this is my tile, scrap tile. So yeah, you could start that process and work your way outward and do these 4 fill-ins if you wanted everything symmetrical. There's enough room here. There's about 1/8 of an inch or so of room here for thin set that is going to go and glue these to the surface. And by the time that 1/8 of an inch gets filled up, you're going to be right flush with the drain. So yeah, that's the final look, the final outcome of this drain. And that's it. That's all I have to say about this. If you're interested in it, like I said, go to wondercap.com, I believe it is. Hold on a second, it's going to say it on here. Yeah, wondercap.com, and you can see all about it. I think they sell them at Ace Hardware, about 2 or 3 other stores. I think Lowe's has them, but probably get it online a little bit cheaper. Hey, if you enjoyed that video and you learned something, consider being a Patreon member. $5, $10, $15 a month would help me greatly produce more videos. I make nothing from YouTube at all. If you're going to call me for advice, please donate $50 for 30 minutes. My link to my PayPal and my Patreon account is down below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get immediate notifications as soon as I post videos. And thank you very much for your support.